Hit the shower, grab your coffee, and get ready to attack the weekend with Charlie Usen and Jack Pembroke as they catch you up on everything Wisconsin sports you may have missed this past week. All before you even finish your breakfast. It's Wisconsin Sports Weekend, brought to you by the Apollo Cafe on Brady Street. 25 years of Greek tradition. Enjoy gyros, souvlaki, fresh salads, and the legendary Zeus burger. Dine in, take out, or get it delivered. Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar of flavor, on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
How we doing, folks? How we doing? I am Charlie Houston, like the big voice lady just said. That is Jack Pembroke, like she also just said, on the other side of the glass, right here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. Jack, over here, I got the Winter Olympics on my TV. I'm watching speed skating. They're flying around. I'm still kind of getting used to this feeling of, so they just showed the two skaters. One of them is a woman from Canada. She's 22 years old. Another one is a woman from the USA. She's 21 years old. I'm still getting used to that feeling of like how weird it is that like there are people doing these like professional sports at this high of a level that are like younger than me now.
Yeah,
that's just like
makes you feel like an uncle now, right? Now you know how I feel.
And I'm only 24 years old, so like I'm not that far off from like these skaters, but it's still so strange to me. Or seeing NBA players coming out like 18 years old, and it's like, dude, I'm old now. Yeah, that's what it feels like. Sometimes.
You're not old. You're just an old soul, Charlie.
I'm wearing a cardigan right now. I think that's
you're very professorial.
Adds to it a little bit. Here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, Jack and I go through the things that you may have missed here on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network on all of your favorite shows. Inside Wisconsin Sports from 6 to 9 with Trevor and Josh. From 9 to noon, it's with Kuhn and Rami Makloff, Brandon Snide over there. From noon to 2, it's the Mason Crosby Show with Mason Crosby, obviously, and Mitch Thundernellis. Tommy Wirtz on the other side of the glass there. And then Wisconsin Sports Daily from 2 to 5 with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer and yours truly, Charlie Houston. So we here have a great show lined up for you guys. We're going to get into all of this Giannis back and forth that happened this past week, the NBA trade deadline, maybe go through over some of the other trades that happened in the NBA, just in case you missed some of those. We're going to dive into some Super Bowl coverage, talk about the NFL awards from this past week, some of the surprises, and then we're going to talk about the Packers and who on their team deserved each of these awards in their own sense on the Packers. Dive into the Olympics a little bit, talk about what events you might be watching. We're also going to discuss in a fantasy world what are the 4 ideal players you would want around Giannis as the Bucks move into an offseason where they are going to look to build around him. Obviously, maybe it may not be players that the Bucks can get, but I want you to just put together that dream lineup around Giannis. On Warlocks Locks, we're going to have Ryan Horvat joining the show. He's going to help us kind of break down the Super Bowl, give us some of his favorite picks for that. And as always, we're going to dive into the Wisconsin Sports Weekend Pub Crawl to close the show off. Jack, let's start with this NBA trade deadline, like I mentioned before. In your mind, what was the most surprising move that you saw just across the league?
I thought the Cleveland Cavaliers made some moves that kind of let the NBA Eastern Conference know that they kind of think that this is their window right now.
So they added James Harden, which was the biggest move that they made, obviously. They moved on from Darius Garland to make that move. Darius Garland's a guy who throughout his career, when he's been able to play and been able to stay on the court, has been phenomenal, has been an all-star caliber player. The problem is he cannot stay on the court ever. He is one of the most injury-prone players in the entire league. Might be worse than like Anthony Davis, who also got traded at this trade deadline. But they moved on from Darius Garland to bring in a James Harden, who on kind of a low-key side of things is having a really great season. He's an all-star caliber player still, even at this older age, but I think he fits better with that squad, especially if he can stay on the court.
Question.
For sure.
Charlie's the GM of the Cavs. You've brought him in. Okay. So he's already in.
Kobe Altman. That's me. Yeah.
You're him now. Getting a better paycheck than here. You're not doing the Saturday show. So he's come in. Do you think you're getting a James Harden now that can play well with others and not be a dominant, baby on offense if he doesn't get his 30 shots?
I don't think that's, I guess, in my mind, James Harden's problem with all the teams that he's leaving. I think every time he leaves a team, it's because of contract disputes. It's never
Sure.
because he's not getting his shots. When he's been a third option, when he's been a second option, he does that really well. And he usually doesn't complain at all about what's happening on the court. That's not the issue. The issue with the Clippers is that they were spending a ton of money this season on a lot of players that were
Older players
that were just not in the long run going to win them a championship. So I think they just decided to kind of vacate that path and move on from some of these veteran players, because they also moved on from Ivica Zubac, who they traded to the Indiana Pacers in a huge trade, where they got a couple first-round picks in that one, which is something that's pretty interesting for a team that still held on to a Kawhi Leonard too. But I think James Harden is a guy that in the second half of the season, when he knows it's all about just getting a contract in the offseason, I think he's going to be okay, especially in a Cavs roster who is one of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference, in an Eastern Conference where it's kind of weak right now, if we're being completely honest. That Detroit Pistons team at the top, while they are playing really well,
very young.
They're extremely young. Exactly. The Boston Celtics, while they're playing really well, they don't have Jason Tatum. This is a year where the Cavs, I think, can really just snatch kind of that Eastern Conference title and be the team that represents that side of the NBA in the championship series. I think the other trade that surprised me too, I mentioned it a little bit before, Anthony Davis to the Wizards.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Did you see that coming?
No.
At all?
Do you think that that's attributed to, we were talking injuries or guys being made of glass?
Right.
He's a lot older. He's not giving you the same amount of time off the bench or starting.
And they said they're shutting him down for the season, along with Trae Young, who they traded for. Both of them will not be playing this season.
So, I mean, you got some guys that on paper, if healthy, can be good for a younger Washington Wizards team. But as we said last week, that's kind of where your NBA career goes to die.
Yeah, I get it. And I think from my perspective, I just liked that they did it. I don't really care that it's 2 players who A, are injury prone, can't really stay on the court, and then B, 2 players that I think have kind of been uplifted, A, either by situation, or B, by the players that are around them. But I think I like that the Washington Wizards are just trying something new and trying to say, you know what, we have been this kind of bottom feeder team. Let's switch it up. Trae Young said he wanted to come here. Okay, let's go and bring Trae Young in then. Why not?
I'll give you that. It's probably the first time in a long time they haven't. The Wiz kids usually get someone who's very long in the tooth, aka Michael Jordan, coming back.
Yeah.
Or they get really young draft picks that don't turn out.
Yeah, it's what they build. They haven't really gone out and done this in a long time. And I think this is something that excites me. And I think across the NBA, you saw a lot of young teams, including like the Utah Jazz, who trade for Jaren Jackson Jr., another just really kind of interesting move that was really cool to see. I like to see that these young teams are looking across the league, seeing the parity that's kind of happening across the league, and saying, you know what, we can try to chase that. We can try to get there and kind of fast track our rebuilds, our retoolings, and put ourselves into that position. I just wonder, moving into next season, again, the Washington Wizards are planning on shutting down Anthony Davis, Trae Young. They're both probably not going to play for the rest of this season. Going into next season, the East is going to be a lot healthier. You're still going to have the Knicks unless they have to move some stuff around. I know their contract situations are getting a little kind of scary moving forward over these next couple of years, but the Milwaukee Bucks should be healthier and should be retooled a little bit. We'll see what they can do with a Giannis if they decide to keep him through the summer, which I think they will. You're going to have a healthy Jason Tatum with the Boston Celtics, which are always going to be a dangerous team. And then you have the Detroit Pistons, who are young and are getting better. You have the Toronto Raptors, who have been a lot better this season than I think people expected. You have the Orlando Magic, who are a younger team that have been kind of up and down this season, but they have a bright future, especially if they can move around against some of those pieces and retool a little bit this offseason. I think East is going to be really interesting moving forward. And I just don't know if the Wizards going out and getting these 2 guys who have their proverbial ceilings. I think these are things that it looks fun and it looks good, but I think in the long term probably isn't good for those teams. And that's why I kind of want to move on over back to the Milwaukee Bucks. I mentioned it before. They decided to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo through the trade deadline. That's not what I'm talking about here. Now that you've decided to keep Giannis through the trade deadline, my question is, do you feel like the Bucks did enough either one way or the other to kind of make a decision on the future of this team with Giannis?
So I think you hit the nail on the head right there. To me, they've made a decision. And, people might say, oh, well, they could trade him next year, Jack, like, oh, and you'll look like idiots talking about, oh, we're going to keep him. I think in the past 2 weeks, it came to a head, watershed moment, where they all sat down, top brass, Doc and Giannis, and they laid out the plan for the next year. Okay, what's the plan for after this season? Because I think you've heard Giannis keep saying, I mean, he's a guy who doesn't go on social media. Did you see the Instagram post about I'm not going anywhere?
Wolf of Wall Street, yep.
Yeah. So to me,
or Sparky calls it Wolves of Wall Street.
Oh, well, Sparky, he doesn't get out much.
He only knows like 3 movies. We were talking about this. The Replacements are apparently one of them.
Oh, that's amazing, because that's a very, very, look, Sparky's gold. That's awesome that's one of his top 3 films.
I don't know if it is. We were just talking about it the other day, and I was making
awesome.
fun of him saying he only knows 3 movies.
One of the best Keanu Reeves films ever. But let's get back to the Bucks. I think that they've sat down and they've shown Giannis that there's a plan. Giannis might have dipped his toes in the water, and they might have heard offers, and Giannis was like, it's not worth it.
So if they have this plan, so when I talk about this plan, I'm not talking about, I guess, in my mind, a plan with Giannis, but what is this plan for the team then moving forward with Giannis on the team? And I don't think looking at what they did at this trade deadline tells you that, because the only thing they did was move Cole Anthony and Amir Coffey for Nigel Hayes-Davis, Wisconsin Badger legend. Awesome to have him on the team for about 5 seconds before they cut him from the team. And then now they're moving on from him. And then Nick Richards, who they then moved Nick Richards to the Chicago Bulls for Ousmane Dieng, who's a young player who's been around the G League, was a G League MVP very recently with the OKC Thunder system. He's a young player with some potential, but that's the only move they made, was moving on from those couple of guys. I think a lot of people, and I can go back, reference Sparky in Wisconsin Sports Daily, were mad that, okay, yes, you kept Giannis, and we're excited about that. We're happy about that. Let's put that out on the table. I think most people should be happy that Giannis is still on this team. I think a lot of people were more kind of doomsday, saying, it's going to happen, so let's just talk about it. Let's move on from this. But then it didn't happen. So a lot of people should be satisfied with that alone. But on the other side of things, Sparky wanted this team vacated. He wanted everybody else around Giannis to be traded for some kind of draft picks, just make the team as kind of insufferable to watch as possible, and have Giannis be shut down for the rest of the season.
The Herb Cole era.
Lose out for a better draft pick and get a couple young players with the picks that you have, because the Bucks have a first-round pick. I know a lot of people arguing about that. They have pick swaps with the Atlanta Hawks, New Orleans Pelicans. It's a whole deal. But they have a first-round pick that right now, between the 3 of those teams, is looking like it's going to be a top 10 pick. But they didn't do that. Okay, so you don't do that. But then you also don't go out and you don't bring in a John Morant. You don't bring in any other players to help improve what you're watching on the court right now. So now you're not going in the other direction. You're not trying to be competitive anymore. You're still sitting kind of in that no man's land area. And now the Bucks have won 3 straight games, yes, against bad teams, but that hurts them if they want a good draft pick, Jack.
Totally. So, gosh, I hate when you make good points, but I also appreciate it. Look, to me, when I'm talking about they've got a plan, I'm talking about next season. Right now, I think even Giannis will admit, like, look, I'm going to play when I'm healthy, and let's see what we can do. I think it's great that we're able to do what we've been doing the last 3 games, where they've been competitive for the last 4 weeks with or without Giannis. And I think that's a great sign. But you're right. That's going to hurt you no matter what. If we play better, that's dropping down to an 18th or 25th pick in that draft, in that first round. And then it becomes like, well, it's pointless. That's a dead pick. It's really hard to find a guy at the end of the first round draft that's going to be an immediate impact next season. And that's what you want for if there's a plan to keep Giannis happy. Because if we play this video over again in fall of next year, Shams is going to be talking about him being traded. And I just
So with that whole situation of
Mhm.
Shams still bringing up the trade all the time, no matter what, just that it's looming, that something's always near, that he's hearing from his sources. Actually, he never says that Giannis requests a trade or that a trade's going to happen.
No.
He always says Giannis is exploring his options or Giannis is looking for a new team or a new situation. That's what he always says, because then he can kind of fall back on that. And I talked about this with Thunder yesterday when he was filling in for Sparky on Wisconsin Sports Daily. He can kind of fall back on that notion that, oh, I never said he asked for a trade. Oh,
Nothing
I never
specific.
said he was going to be traded. I just said that he was ready for the situation. I just said that, oh, he is just exploring his options, which Giannis says is true. He says that all the time, that he does look at his other options each season and what is best for him and his future in the NBA, because he doesn't have a very long future in the NBA. He talked about that himself too, with the one-on-one interview he did with Jim Ozarski and Eric Name this past week, where he talked about, I don't have much longer. He's 31 years old right now. If he stays as healthy as possible, he probably only has 5 to 6 more seasons.
I was going to say plays to
him.
36, right?
Like that's a lot of basketball still left to play, yet not a lot in the grand scheme of things either.
He's closer to the end of his career than the start, right?
So he needs this kind of support system built around him. Now, what I think the Milwaukee Bucks did at this trade deadline is just stay at the kind of that mediocre threshold, that kind of borderline play-in level team, especially if he comes back and plays, which he says he wants to, which I think is probably the worst case scenario for this Milwaukee Bucks team. If you want to prove that you can keep this team going around him, you needed to change what we were seeing on the court this season. I needed to see more energy. I think over these past 3 games, the Bucks have looked more energized. Pete Nance is a breath of fresh air out of nowhere. He's not like the most exciting player, but he's constantly moving. You can see the way that it floats throughout the rest of the team.
He plays well within this offense.
Exactly. He fits with what Doc Rivers, for the first time in his entire tenure with the Milwaukee Bucks, actually wants to do. This is kind of crazy. It feels like the team again is starting to just play with a little bit more energy, but I think it helps that Giannis says, I'm back.
It does feel like the morale's better, and it does feel like, okay, there is some point to playing these games right now.
For sure. And I think this is something that with Giannis, that should kind of give him a little bit of hope. But the fact that the team isn't different when he has all but basically called out the players by name so far this season, and it asked for them to play with more energy and asked for them to do the little things better. And I think what is still on the court are the same players that he was still asking that energy of. And I know he says he believes in them, that that's his brothers, but maybe switching it up a little bit and bringing in somebody new to kind of kickstart whatever you want to do, whether it's stay competitive and be competing for a playoff spot and a championship, or turn it around immediately with a draft kind of rebuild, retooling like the Warriors did, where they won a few championships. Then they had a bunch of injuries, so then they got the first overall pick by shutting everybody down on their team, and then they turned that team into a championship team the next year, despite the first or second overall pick, James Wiseman, that didn't work out very well. They still were able to turn it around because they were able to do that kind of quick, hard reset. The Bucks aren't doing either of those things, and I think that's something that frustrates a few fans, including guys like Sparky. Jack, if you had to choose a direction that you want this Bucks team to go at this trade deadline, would you rather they have kind of reset or try to bring in a talent like a John Morant?
I think if you're on the side of the fence that says, hey, I would have made a move. If you're keeping Giannis, I would have made a move from another piece on the Bucks, like say a Miles Turner. You probably could have shopped a Miles Turner. Like, look, Kristaps Porzingis went to the Warriors. They were looking for some type of power forward or center that can dribble, drive, and be able to shoot. I think that's what you try and go to. Maybe if it's a Hawks or another team or a Memphis Grizzlies, maybe you're not getting John Morant, but Jaren Jackson was evidently on the table. So I don't think you would be able in a perfect world to get Jaren Jackson for a Miles Turner. I think you would.
Well, yeah, and I think the Jaren Jackson, the picks were the biggest key in that trade.
And we don't have picks.
They don't have those
exactly.
Picks. And Jaren Jackson Jr., in my mind at least, doesn't fit the best next to a Giannis. I think if you were to want to replace Giannis for some reason, that's a guy you maybe wouldn't want to come to bring in so you don't have to change the system all that much, because I think he can kind of do that Giannis role if you give him the right kind of opportunities. But also, I just don't think together they would have meshed.
No.
Well,
and at the end of the day, Charlie, I'm more conservative, and I'm kind of glad. A lot of people see the lack of movement as neutrality and like we're just done with the season. And I think you have an argument there if that's how you feel as a Bucks fan. But I didn't feel like there was a move that would have been a smart and equitable move for the Bucks before this offseason.
Right. And I get where you're coming from. And I think that's a fair perspective on all of this. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend. That is my guy, the Wisconsin Warlock, Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass. I'm Charlie Houston. If you want to get in on the show, hit us up on the Nicolay Law talk and text line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250-1250 to get in on this with Jack and I. Also, if you head over to @WI Sports Radio on YouTube and Twitter, we are live streaming. You can see Jack's beautiful face over there. My very hairy face over on the other side of the screen. And you can join us in the dugout chat, comment on there to get in on the show that way. Again, this is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook, and we are presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. We will be right back.
Just what are you expecting to go over there to San Francisco to watch this game, to watch your son?
To be honest with you, I don't know. Everybody keep asking me, do you know what you are going for? I said, Super Bowl. They said, do you know how many people died to go to Super Bowl? I'm like, how? I don't know. I have opportunity to go there. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is something big that I don't know. It's big. I don't know what I'm expecting. All I'm going there is to shout, yay, Super Bowl, touchdown, we win. That's it. That's all I'm going to do.
That is Nick Eamon-Wari, a star rookie safety for the Seattle Seahawks. That's his mom, Justina, who's from Nigeria. His whole family is coming for the Super Bowl. Apparently, she has never heard of the Super Bowl before coming here to watch her son play. He's phenomenal. He's like the next big thing, Kyle Hamilton style hybrid safety. Awesome. But I just thought that clip was hilarious, Jack.
That is hilarious. She's like, I don't really know what I'm going there for, but other than to yell, "Yay, we're at the Super Bowl, touchdown!" Hey, she knows what she needs to say. Hey,
she's like, people tell me how lucky I am. I don't know.
Do you know how many people die? She's like, how?
how do people want to go to this so bad? That's hilarious. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke, and we are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We are also presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. Thank you so much for joining us today on this lovely Saturday. If you missed any of the first segment where Jack and I broke down the NBA trade deadline, talked about what the Milwaukee Bucks did, or I guess didn't do at the same time, you can head back, wisportsradio.com, find the live stream there where you can rewind it on that. Also at WI Sports Radio on YouTube, on Twitter, where you can see us live streaming the video feed there. You can rewind it that way as well. If you'd like to get in on the show, 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250, 1250 to get in on the show with the Nicolay Law Talk and text line. We'd love to have you that way as well. The reason I played that clip of Justina, of Nick Eamon-Wari's mom, was because I wanted to dive into this Super Bowl. And also, I kind of want to dive into the NFL awards. Let's do that first, Jack. The biggest kind of surprise to me, and I don't know if it was as much of a surprise to you, when I was talking about it with Mitch Thunder Nellis, he didn't think it was a surprise. He thought it was a pretty kind of standard thing that a lot of people were agreeing on. But Matthew Stafford winning the MVP award over Drake May. I know Matthew Stafford had a phenomenal season. I know he had an MVP worthy season. I don't know if it was more MVP worthy than Drake May. Do you?
I think we kind of started this argument or dialogue off screen. You made a great point that you said, well, he had a guy named Devontae Adams and Bakua Nakua on his offense. He definitely had a very strong offensive line. And he had a guy named Kyron Williams and a guy named Blake Corum, who is a bit slept on until the end of the year for that team. Great running back in the red zone. So I think compared to a lot of other teams than the NFL or NFC versus AFC, he had a great first half of the season that you could make an argument. Look, the guy came out of back surgery. People thought he wasn't going to even play in the first week. They just made a trade for Devontae Adams. But I think he had a lot of weapons around him to put him in that conversation for MVP. To me, Drake May is probably the more of the MVP after going 4-13 last year.
Do you think he got punished at all, and punished is in air quotes in this situation, by the voters, Drake May that is, for only being in his second season compared to Matthew Stafford? Yeah. That legacy kind of part played into it. Do you think that's fair that the legacy part played
a lot of these awards, Charlie, are like the Oscars, or it's who's popular at the right moment, and storyline does play into it as much as people don't want it to, and they want to thank the AP writers and all these other people that control the NFL honors and awards. are actually just looking for the best overall player. I think they're also looking for the best storyline, and he's probably in one of his last seasons, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is a nod off to, hey, we're sorry you had to waste the better part of your career in Detroit with just Calvin Johnson. And, you know, this is a nice little send off for Matt Stafford, and Drake May will be in this position a lot, you know, for the next couple of years. So I think, yeah, you make a great point when you say year 2, Drake May got hurt for being a really good player in year 2.
All right. And again, I get where I guess the voters are coming from when you do give out that legacy kind of vote. But I also feel like that's so participation.
Oh, I'm not arguing for it.
I know you're not. I'm just saying kind of in general that is so participation trophy.
It's a pat on the back.
Voters. Yeah. And when I look at the tools that Drake May had this season and what he was doing with a wide receiver room that was headlined by a Stephon Diggs that was a year or two past his prime in this situation, I think this is something where you have to give him more percentage credit points for that than you do Matthew Stafford for being in his 18 billionth year and that he is old and still played really well. So he gets points for that. I don't know. I think that the fact that Drake May's lack of talent surrounding him should weigh heavier than the storyline of a Matthew Stafford in my mind. And I guess if Drake May is going to get hurt for it only being his second season, Matthew Stafford should be more hurt for having this superstar caliber offense around him, headlined by a head coach who is one of the greatest of this era.
Do you think in any way it may have affected the voters in that the NFC probably looks a little bit stronger this year than the AFC?
Maybe, and I can see why, but also I think that despite the fact that the AFC guys or teams like the Chiefs didn't perform as well, the Bills didn't look nearly as kind of unstoppable in the regular season as they had been. You weren't seeing the Ravens compete until the end of the season, really. Yes, I can see why that would play a factor and maybe why that makes more sense to hurt Drake May's case than his age. But at the same time, he led a team that last year was one of the worst teams in football and turned that completely 180 around into being one of the best teams in the league. Yes, it was in a weaker conference, but that is a feat that can't go untalked about in my mind.
I think that's, if I had a vote, he probably would have been my vote. I can't really think of anyone else that would have been my vote.
My vote would have been Christian McCaffrey. And if
that's a fair vote.
If that was a serious consideration at all, I think he would have won if people weren't just looking at this like a quarterback award. Jack, at this point, and Thunder brought this up yesterday too, do you think they should just say the MVP award is explicitly a quarterback award? Would that make you feel better about the fact that it's just always a quarterback at this point? We haven't had a non-quarterback MVP since Adrian Peterson.
And for people listening, that is a very calm lineman talking about quarterbacks getting the spotlight.
Protector of the Year award was awesome this year too. Bear wanted Joe Thuney. That was really awesome. That was my new favorite award. I thought that was really cool when Deion Dawkins brought it last year. But continue, Jack. Sorry.
I love the input because we need to hear more about linemen. Yes, football it's a lot like basketball where the guy who has the ball in his hands the majority of the time on the team is going to get the voting for the award. It's really hard for anyone who doesn't drop back and take a 5 or 7 step back every time on the offense.
But isn't that a little unfair to compare it to basketball?
Oh, yeah.
Because like the quarterback is forced to touch the ball.
The quarterback's the point guard of the whole team.
If that's the case, then the center should be the person in MVP consideration all the time, right?
Maybe it should be a co-award. Best center, best quarterback award.
Okay, I like that.
But yeah, look, this league is focused on points, and we maybe have like a resurgence of running backs and great running backs with a Bijan Robinson, with a C-Mac, with guys like Jacobs over the past couple of years where, they've meant a lot to teams. I just think it's so hard. Fans, if it's not a quarterback or a wide receiver, people just tend not to notice because it's not as sexy, you know?
And I get that, but the people that are voting for this award are the ones that are supposed to notice. And again, I'm not saying you're wrong for what you're saying, but I'm saying the voters are wrong for not paying more attention and giving the credit where credit is due, especially in a situation where like Christian McCaffrey was the driving reason
Carried them.
that the San Francisco 49ers made a playoff run this year.
Carried them.
Was the driving reason. And next year he's going to spend the entire season hurt, so people are going to forget about him because that's what happens all the time. Him and Saquon are both going to get hurt next year. Actually, Saquon's down season was this year, so Saquon's going to have a good season next year. They go back.
Just the load that he had to put. He does touch the ball as much as a quarterback does in a game.
And it's not. He was the leading receiver for the 49ers too as a running back. That has to be talked about more in these voting circles. And if it's not, then don't even bother having him on that list.
And look at the injuries to that team. George Kittle out for the majority of the year. Who the heck did they have consistently?
Brandon Ayuk was just MIA for the entire season. Kyle Shanahan talked about how he didn't even talk to him for a majority of the year. That he still hasn't talked to him, that at this point he's just not on the San Francisco 49ers because he's just not there, even though they paid him. That was a really weird situation. Weird. Just really interesting what's happening there. They moved on from Deebo Samuel. Not that he was helping that much last season. Their defense was hurt and banged up as per usual in San Francisco. Their offensive line was banged up. Brock Purdy was out half the season. Yes, Mac Jones played really well in his place, but Mac Jones is also still Mac Jones, so there's a ceiling to what he can bring you on the field. And Christian McCaffrey was there the entire time. In my mind, Jackson Smith and Jigba should have gotten more MVP votes. I think the fact that he became the central figure in that offense out of kind of nowhere, I think it's awesome he won the Offensive Player of the Year. I would have voted for him in that category too. But I think the fact that he wasn't even in consideration for like MVP, again, is kind of a crime to what he meant to that Seattle offense this season.
It is a crime. And I would like to see, I play devil's advocate a lot on these little tidbits, but I would like to see more wide receivers and more running backs, especially guys like JSN and McCaffrey, because there were so many injuries or just not other players you could really rely on in crunch time for those teams. That who the heck do you think the defense was keying in on against the Niners, against the Seahawks? It wasn't like, hey, we really got to worry about Sam Darnold. It was like, oh, we're going to double coverage JSN all over the field. And he still put up multiple 100+ yard games.
Well, and I think the other side of things too, if you go to the defense, give those guys some love. Myles Garrett deserves an MVP.
Myles Garrett
at least
could get
one.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? The fact that they won any games this season was a miracle, and it was because he and that defense were just phenomenal. Will Anderson for the Houston Texans, give him an MVP vote because he had a phenomenal season. That Houston Texans defense, if they weren't nearly as good as they were, if they weren't even close to what they were, they would have been awful as a team this year.
Myles Garrett is the only reason we lost in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, essentially. Micah Parsons, you saw what happened to the Packers when he wasn't on the field. It just went downhill immediately. Give him an MVP vote this past season, man. I think there's a lot of people that deserve more love and consideration in this. And I think this is where I'm going with this. The fact that Justin Herbert got that one vote, I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's stupid. You stole the MVP from Drake May. They could have tied. They could have had co-MVP. Justin Herbert, how do you not look at him and say that he deserves some kind of MVP consideration?
I don't know how he's not in a hospital.
He had an offensive line that was made of Jack, Tommy, Mitch, and Sparky out there, essentially.
It's like that commercial where they put in the stop guard, and he's like, it's a city ordinance. You got to stop. That's me trying to cover it.
They had us out there at offensive line, and then Elizabeth and Radar over there at wide receiver, man. Like, they didn't have any talent on the team besides a rookie tight end that was playing way beyond what anybody expected. Amari Gadsden. I think this is something where I think that's, again, some people call it a waste of a vote, and I can understand why they would say it's a waste of a vote. But at the same time, a player like that deserves the recognition when they're in a situation like that for an award where they're supposed to be the most, or they're supposed to be called the most valuable player on their team. I think other players deserve that. I think if you feel like a guy like Christian McCaffrey is the MVP, yeah, he's not a quarterback, but you feel like he carried his team to that level, give him your vote. If you feel like Myles Garrett, yes, he was on a bad team, not a winning team, but the fact that they won any games with that offense that they were running was just a mystery to most people. Give him the vote if you feel like he's that type of player. MVP voters, be more critical and stop following the crowd as much as everybody wants you to, in my mind. That's where I'm going with this. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, though. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke. We are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook, and we are presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. Coming up 10:20. Stay tuned for that. Ryan Horvat joining us for Warlocks Locks right here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend. We will be right back. Welcome back into Wisconsin Sports Weekend. I am Charlie Houston. That is Jack Pembroke. And we are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. And we are presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Bray Street. Thank you so much for joining us today on Wisconsin Sports Weekend. If you have missed any of the show, wisportsradio.com, rewind the live stream that way. WI Sports Radio, at WI Sports Radio, YouTube, Twitter, where we are live streaming right now, the video feed. Follow us on there. Comment in the dugout that way. Hit us up on the Nikolai Law talk and text line 414-677-1250 and 414-677-1250 to get us that way. And you can talk to us live here on the show. It's a lot of fun when you guys do that. So please come on, do it. I like all the fun fan interaction. We only got about 5 minutes left here before we have to hit one more break. In the second hour, we are going to dive into kind of your fantasy dream world around Giannis. What kind of players would you want to put around the superstar if you were running the Milwaukee Bucks and it's NBA 2K? There's no salary cap. You can trade for fun. Just the ideal type of player you want to put around a guy like Giannis. At 10:20, Ryan Horvat's going to join the show, help us out with Warlocks Locks, give us some insight into the Super Bowl. I also want to ask him a couple questions kind of about the betting world in general. Giannis partnering with Kalshi. That was kind of an interesting thing that came out yesterday.
Did not expect that.
That was really interesting. So I want to see what Ryan has an opinion on that. And then, as always, we close the show off with the Warlocks Locks. Yesterday, you had the opening ceremonies for the Olympics happen. First of all, way too long, man. I'm sorry. I wanted to watch them. I was at work last night. I wore my my USA hockey jersey. We had them on at the bar. They made us put the sound on. And I'm watching for the first 30 minutes. I'm oh, this is fun. This is a good time. And I was all right, now I'm done.
It's more like to be able to sell Nike and Polo's different clothing that they made for the countries.
Well, and I get that. But then by the time they get to the end of the march, all the teams coming out and doing their parade, raising the flags and everything, that's really cool. Fine. I get that takes a while because you have so many countries competing. But also, then you have a whole nother music number afterwards with speeches and all these other things. I get it only happens every 4 years, but let's
fast forward.
Hurry it up a little bit, get going here. The main event is the sports, which a lot of them are happening today. Again, I've been watching freestyle skiing, which was kind of cool. I saw one guy wipe out, bust his butt. He was on the ground for a while. It did not look fun. Probably going to have a really bad bruise. Right now I'm watching speed skating. Jack, in the Olympics, are there any sports you look forward to on the winter side of things each time it comes around?
Definitely downhill. Love downhill skiing, especially now they've put POV cameras, and it's amazing, eye-opening to see what those guys are seeing at 80 miles per hour. Scary. I also like cross-country skiing is not bad, but it's not something I get excited for. People are going to laugh, but if you're from the Midwest, I think I get excited for curling because it's something that you and I and Tommy could go have some beers and probably get good at. And
that's one of my best friends. He and his dad belong to a curling club, and they go and do curling competitions, not all over the United States, but kind of in the Midwest area all the time. It sounds like so much fun. He's we go and just get drunk. They got at our curling club a beer wall that you just pour yourself as you go if you got a membership.
Probably some good cheese curds.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like such the most Wisconsin, Minnesota type thing to be doing.
That's very Midwestern. And then I'd have to say, men's hockey.
Of course. I think hockey is kind of the biggest thing. This year, USA, Canada, in the Four Nations Cup got a little testy, so this is going to be fun to watch. This year should see some kind of really, really just aggressive, old style hockey, what you expect from those classic Miracle on Ice type of teams. It should be a lot of fun.
USA and Canada always go at it, and I'd have it no other way. Let's beat the best.
Have you heard of Skimo?
No, what is that?
So Tommy, Mitch Thundernels, Mason Crosby had a guest on this past week. Really great interview. Go check it out again at WI Sports Radio on YouTube. But it's a sport where basically people just are flying downhill as fast as possible, racing together, on snowboards. So have you ever seen the movie Hoodwinked? This is the one.
Okay,
This is how Tommy explained it. I thought it was awesome. And Mason and Mitch kind of knew what he was talking about. I was like, nope, that's like I grew up with Hoodwinked. Like the granny going down the hill and she's just flying, like pushing people around. That's all I was picturing. So I'm excited to watch that whenever that comes up.
It's just like BMX bike racing with
Kind
the
of,
snowboard.
yeah, with a snowboard.
Okay.
It's really crazy. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook, presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke. When we come back, the second hour of Wisconsin Sports Weekend, so do not turn that dial. We will be here with you with a whole nother set of great topics.
Hit the shower. Grab your coffee. And get ready to attack the weekend with Charlie Usen and Jack Pembroke as they catch you up on everything Wisconsin sports you may have missed this past week. All before you even finish your breakfast. It's Wisconsin Sports Weekend, brought to you by the Apollo Cafe on Brady Street. 25 years of Greek tradition. Enjoy gyros, souvlaki, fresh salads, and the legendary Zeus Burger. Dine in, take out, or get it delivered. Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar of flavor, on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
Welcome into Wisconsin Sports Weekend, like the big voice lady just said. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass there. And we are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. And we are presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. Happy Super Bowl weekend. Super Bowl Sunday is tomorrow. Happy beginning of the Olympics. If you're an Olympics fan, a lot of great events going on. Just saw a guy almost break the world record in speed skating. That was kind of cool. He didn't do it, but it was close. He got close to that. Jack, how do you spend your Super Bowl Sundays? What have you done in the past? What are you doing this year?
Well, if the Packers are in it, you stay at home, and I have an immigrant as a father from Ireland, so you clean at like 8:30 a.m. so people can come over at 3:30 p.m. and pretend that you live that clean of a lifestyle.
Of course, yeah, right.
But you got to get your food ready.
What's your go-to like kind of setup, meal setup?
You're gonna be surprised. Potato chips, anything potato, double baked potato, bacon potato.
The best vessel for everything.
Yeah,
honestly, I love potatoes, so that makes sense.
So, but I think I'm gonna be watching it with a couple of guys from our league.
Cool.
And don't really have a dog in the fight, but I think I'm going Seattle Seahawks.
Good Tom Brady. Stay tuned for the pub crawl. We'll get into that a little bit there. I am working on the Super Bowl. I said this yesterday on Wisconsin Sports Daily. I actually plan to take that day off. I did take that day off tomorrow in hopes that maybe like the little part of me that saw the Bears beat the Packers in the first round would lead to potentially a Super Bowl run. So I took off on the Super Bowl just in case, just so I could like watch it with my dad, head home, watch it that way instead of having to work. And then the Bears lost the very next week to the LA Rams, and I was very sad. So I'm gonna pick up a shift. I need to work. I don't want to sit here and watch this game. I'm sad that the Bears got my hopes up, but also, still a good season for them, so I can't be mad about that. So I'm gonna be at the brewery, gonna eat some nachos. We got great nachos there, so that's like one of my favorite things. I had a pizza yesterday for work, so maybe I'll have another pizza at work tomorrow.
Super Bowl pizza, you like that?
Maybe get some Domino's on my way home or something.
Okay,
get the classics, right?
Nice.
But yeah, so let us know, how are you spending your Super Bowl Sunday? 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250, 1250 to get in on the show that way. Also, at WI Sports Radio, in the Dugout Chat, YouTube, Twitter, get in on the show that way. One more question for you, too, if you want to answer this, along with what are you doing for Super Bowl Sunday? As Q always likes to know, what chores are you doing today? What are you doing right now? Just hanging out with us? Are you cleaning the bathroom, cleaning the toilet as Q was doing the last couple times?
Perfecting the perfect parlay for a Super Bowl.
Ooh, there you go. Just like Ryan Horvat will help us do when he joins the show in the next segment on Warlocks Locks. So stay tuned for that. Should be a lot of fun there. But before we get into that, I did want to head back to the Milwaukee Bucks and the Giannis Antetokounmpo conversation. Giannis, as we all know, is still with the Milwaukee Bucks past the trade deadline, which means that the Bucks now need to find a way either to trade him in the offseason, which at this rate, if you didn't trade him now, I feel like you got to keep him as long as he wants to be here. Try to build around him as much as possible, which I think is what the Bucks plan is going to be. Now, in a realistic world, we could talk about all kind of like the small caliber players that could fit in with Giannis. You could talk about how you can go out and get a Paul Reed and bring him in, and he'll be a really good defensive rebounder for this team, especially in the paint, to help kind of pair with Giannis. No, I don't want to hear about Paul Reed. We're going to pretend like this is like a 2K simulation. You turned off the salary caps. You turned off the trade restrictions.
Go crazy.
Exactly. Go crazy. And I want to know kind of the archetype of players that you would want to put around
Sure.
Giannis. But tell me in terms of the best player at that type of archetype. If you want to put Steph Curry, Nikola Jokic, and Anthony Edwards all with Giannis, go for it if you want. I don't think those three guys fit as well with the Giannis. So let us know, like, what kind of 4 players you want surrounding a player like Giannis. Jack, I'll start with you. I like the point guard position. What are you looking for to pair with Giannis? What type of player is there a player currently in the league that kind of fits that in your mind?
So I was just thinking of that position of like who I would really like and then who would actually be beneficial to them winning deep into playoff games. So my first really like who I just like on a fantasy team, De'Aaron Fox.
Okay.
I think he's a great slasher. I think he's unselfish. Probably needs to get better at defense. But other than that, I think he's a great athlete. But realistically, I'd want to find a guy like Drew Holiday. You want to get a guy who can score, but mainly can play defense against their best scorer every night in and out for a series of 7 games. And we've just been missing that since we were a championship caliber team.
I think that's where I was going to go with this too. I think Drew Holiday really was kind of the perfect point guard to be paired with Giannis.
Yeah.
And I know you needed more scoring from the perimeter. You needed somebody who could handle the ball and be kind of an ISO scorer for this Milwaukee Bucks team from that perimeter. But I think a lot of people just kind of assume that had to be at the point guard position too. And I don't think it does all the time for this team to be able to be successful. I think what made that Bucks team in 2021 so successful is the fact that they could play the perimeter defense and then also have a player in Brook Lopez who was a premier interior defender at that point too, and have Giannis be the best help defender, be able to switch between those two guys. When people are blowing past players like Kevin Porter Jr., when people are blowing past players like Damian Lillard and Ryan Rollins at this point, it is almost impossible for Giannis to have to catch up. And when he doesn't have the safety net behind him with a center who is quick enough, like a prime Brook Lopez, at least for this Bucks team, prime Splash Mountain version of Brook Lopez, when he doesn't have that player behind him, he can't fall back and rely on that guy to help him out when the guards don't do their job in front of him. So now he's doing way more in between those two spots. I think having a guy like Drew Holiday could come in and, again, just slow everything down in front of Giannis and in front of this team defensively. And then offensively, yes, he doesn't give you everything that you would hope he would, everything that he gave teams when he was younger, when he first started with the Bucks. But you can find that in other positions on this team. So I'm with you. I think Drew Holiday would be the guy I want to put there too. If there is a player of a lower caliber that you think that can kind of do that in your mind, who would that be that you think is more attainable for a Bucks? I mean, Drew Holiday isn't unattainable.
No, but if you're going for like what this team is missing from that championship squad, it's rebounding and the ability for a second and third scorer. We don't have that. We were able, if they stopped Giannis, you're able to kick it out. You had a distributor in Drew Holiday who could get it to Cash Middleton, who could get it into the post or kick it out for Splash Mountain to hit a corner 3. You had guys who came off the bench that could give you 8 points to 10 points and play defense. We don't have that.
Yeah, and I think that player that I'm thinking of in my mind that can do that, that's a little bit cheaper, maybe, again, a little bit more attainable than a Drew Holiday, it's like Alonzo Ball right now, who's a player that's kind of floating around the league that I think is long enough and has shown he has the teeth to be a good defender in this league, and then also has his spurts where he can be a good shooter, can be a triple-double threat on a consistent basis. He just needs to be in the right system. And I think for over the past few years, especially with all the injuries,
I was going to say
injuries completely derailed his career in general. But he just hasn't been in the right systems, I feel like, in Cleveland, in Chicago. And now this could be a kind of restart for him where he could be in a more premier role on a smaller stage versus being what he has been, which is either a premier role on a big stage, which is really bright lights, really kind of hard to do at the beginning of a career, or being in a non-premier role on a small stage, which is kind of hard to deal with when you were just a premier role on a big stage. So if you can kind of even that out, that's something that I think could help him kind of reset his career a little bit.
And he'd be a cheaper option.
Exactly. Let's move to that shooting guard position, or that 2 position, I guess, because there's not really point guard shooting guards anymore nowadays. But at that 2 position, I think the player that I'm looking at that I think would fit really well with a Giannis, with this team, is somebody that can be a really consistent scorer and can be somebody that can go out there and give you that for sure 15 to 17 points a game. Doesn't have to be a great defender, doesn't have to be a guy who you rely on to be an interior scorer at all, really, in my mind, because I think you can find that with Giannis on the court, but kind of this 3-point threat. And I think they have this type of archetype already on the team, and that's why they paid him in an AJ Green. But AJ Green just obviously is not consistent enough to have that role. And he truly is a pure 3-point scorer. He doesn't pass the ball really well. He doesn't rebound, doesn't play defense, doesn't move very well. He is shooting the rock. He goes like 6'4", 13 in every single game, and all the shots are from 3-point range. It's kind of crazy. I think in kind of this fantasy world, and maybe I'll throw it back a little bit, like a prime Klay Thompson is that type of player that I'm looking for. A player that you can just stop and shoot, just constantly, barely a dribble, just get it over to him. And I think that archetype is kind of lost nowadays because you have so many players that are able to do so many different things. But I think this has to be a player that you can consistently rely on to be a consistent shot maker in this situation, Jack.
I'd go with a guy. I agree with all of that. I think if Klay Thompson could come in here back in the day of Klay, that would be a beautiful little mismatch for a lot of teams. I'm someone who, what do you think about a Jamal Murray?
I think Jamal Murray is kind of interesting in that situation. I think he's a guy that fits that role pretty well. In my mind, he's a little bit smaller than I guess I'm thinking of in my mind, but I don't think that's a problem.
He can score.
And especially when you have a guy like in our fantasy world, Drew Holiday paired up next to him, I think that helps him out a little bit with that size deficiency that he may have at that 2 position for sure. So Jamal Murray would be pretty cool. And I think, again, that's another player that's harder to get, but I think is obviously more realistic than a prime Klay Thompson. You're not getting that back.
Unselfish. He can hit the 3. He can also dribble, drive, and he's been proven he's great in the 2-man system with Nikola Jokic. So
at your 3, Jack, next to Giannis there,
kind
of wing mid area.
I would have loved, man. Bobby Portis was so good at that 3-4 position back when it was Bobby Portis and he was still the mayor. If I'm thinking of someone right now on other teams at the 3, I don't know who I really like right now. Who would you go for?
Kevin Durant. Come on, give me KD next to Giannis. That 3-level scoring threat, a guy that is long enough and just naturally long enough to be a at least solid defender. I want a Kevin Durant who can kind of, again, slither. I know he's the snake and everything, whatever. That guy that can kind of slither between those levels of scoring. Kawhi Leonard's another name that comes to mind.
Okay, that's who I would love.
Defensively in that range, but again, is a 3-level scorer that can kind of get you on any part of the court.
Plays defense.
Somebody that can just kind of, again, move fluidly with Giannis in this situation. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. And we're asking you, in a dream world, NBA 2K world, where there's no trade restrictions, salary caps off, what is the dream for you guys you would put around Giannis in that dream lineup? What's that player archetype that you're looking for? But again, that 3-level scorer that can kind of move pretty seamlessly across the court and help you out, and then can be long enough, can be big enough to help you defensively as well. I think that's the type of player I'm looking for. Like a more realistic option in my mind is somebody that was also on the trade block this offseason, but like a Herb Jones, I think can get to
that's
that
a great
point.
pick.
And I think offensively, yes, he's much more limited than a Kawhi Leonard and a Kevin Durant, but he's taken steps offensively throughout his career. And now he is a guy who can be a premier defender, which he's been throughout his career, while also taking those steps in a more free-flowing offense with a Giannis instead of a more constricted offense in this New Orleans Pelicans system that he's a part of. So Herb Jones is the guy I'm going for. Jack, at that center position, who are you looking for to pair with Giannis?
I would have loved, I know you already kind of alluded that you didn't think they play well with each other, but a Jokic, because I think you can put him from 4 to 5 and you can, like Giannis at his strength, he could play everything from 3 to 5, right? So I think they're interchangeable. I would have loved to see a Twin Tower situation like you talked about when we had a Splash Mountain, prime Splash Mountain. Nikola can definitely pull out the defense. He can hit the threes. He's a great passer. I think he would love to play with Giannis and would learn to try and work well with him. I do see that, yes, there's probably some inconsistencies at first because both of those guys love to have the ball. So, but I would love a Nikola Jokic.
I get that. And I think with Jokic, the only thing that kind of holds me back is his play style a little bit. I think defensively, you want somebody behind Giannis who can still help out and, again, be that guy where it doesn't force Giannis to be that main interior defender. Because not that I think he can't do it, but I think it puts too much of a workload on him. And I think with the Jokic, obviously, Giannis and Jokic would be awesome to see together. I can't deny that if Jokic wants to play for the Bucks, yeah, come play for the Bucks, man. In fantasy world too, if you want to come play here, sure, whatever. But I think in my mind, if I'm looking at an archetype that I want to fit with a Giannis, I think there's a lot of guys this trade deadline, that were moved or were fit kind of with Giannis in theoretical trade packages, but like a Bam Adebayo sometimes really kind of strikes.
Love Bam
strikes
Adebayo.
Me. Well, his offensive game is a little limited, and I think that worries me a little bit. I still want somebody who can kind of spread the floor a bit. But in this fantasy world, maybe there's no injuries too. And if there's no injuries, a Kristaps Porzingis, in my mind, is a player that I think would fit really well with Giannis. I think he has that length to be a good interior defender. I know recently in his career, he hasn't been that same level. But then he also has the stretch ability that you got from like a Brook Lopez. But I think at a more dangerous level, I think he can also help you out in the mid-range a little bit too, where Brook was a little bit more deficient for this team.
He did that for the Celtics.
Yeah, I know that's not the sexiest pick. It's not a Jokic. It's not Karl-Anthony Towns, which I wouldn't hate either. But
that's what I was going to say.
But I think this is a player where he just fits what this team could be. I think kind of what I want to go back to is what I just described was the championship team. Like that build, those types of players around Giannis, that's what you need to kind of go back to and find young players, find these guys that are kind of looked past a little bit, but fit the archetype of what you're looking for this Bucks team in order to help build it back up around Giannis. Instead of trying to change the identity of this team all the time, go back to what's worked and see if you can try to recreate the same kind of magic. Yes, maybe not with the same players, but with a group of players that fit that same kind of archetype in my mind.
I'll flip it to a Porzingis from Jokic because you made a great argument. It can give you defensive. He's not giving you as much scoring, but he does give you a lot where Giannis needs it.
For sure. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Head over to the Nicolay Law Talk and text line. I've been a little negligent of it today, so I wanted to hit on some of these texts we're getting in over here. From Sheila in Milwaukee, she said, "Thank you so much for playing that clip of the Nigerian mom, Nikki Manwari's mom. That just made my morning. That was fantastic. Funny how we just expect everyone knows that the Super Bowl is an American holiday. Great content this morning, gentlemen." Thanks, Sheila. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Sheila.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I just think that's awesome. And that she's just willing to go for the experience. She doesn't know what she's getting herself into or anything. She's just willing to go have fun, support her son.
Charlie and I love sports moms, just going out there, and she's yay Super Bowl touchdown.
For sure. This is from the 414. I think the MVP award should provide guideline criteria and also take into account the backup to the player being considered. If not, then it should be an award for the best player. Take into account the backup to the player being considered. I think I get where you're coming from. So like you're saying if the guy gets hurt and the player kind of, or the team automatically tanks. So like what I was talking about with Michael Parsons, where the guy next up just doesn't get the job done the same way. Does that hurt him? Or in the sense of like a Jordan Love where Malik Willis comes in and he plays really well, does that hurt Jordan Love's MVP case in that sense? Because, Matt LaFleur, that coaching staff is doing something right. I can see where you're coming from with that. Somebody says, I agree with the Herbert vote as well as from the 262. Maybe the name of the award needs to be changed to most outstanding player. But no one wants to be the most outstanding player. Yeah, I can get where you're coming from, but I think most outstanding player would still be an honor. And I think it would change what that award means versus most valuable versus most outstanding. Maybe they could be two different awards. So you could try to work that out a little bit there. But yeah, thank you so much for texting into the Nicolay Law Talk and text line. 414-677-1250. You can also text in this next segment, Warlocks Locks. We're supposed to have Ryan Horvath on here, so we will get to that in a minute. You can ask him some of your burning Super Bowl questions. Maybe he can help you out a little bit. Hit us up at WS Sports Radio as well on YouTube and Twitter to get on that way in the dugout. Again, this is Wisconsin Sports Weekend. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke. We will be right back. Welcome back into Wisconsin Sports Weekend. I am Charlie Houston. I got my guy Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass there. We are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the by Potawatomi Sportsbook, and we are presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. If you guys have tuned into the show before, you do know it is time for Warlocks Locks. Today on Warlocks Locks, I joined special guest in Ryan. So much for Wisconsin this weekend. At Ryan. How are you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Is that a Mountain Joy shirt hat you got on there, Charlie?
It is the Mountain Joy hat. I am a huge fan of that band. I've seen them twice now. Love them. I'm glad you recognize them, actually.
Did you go to the show where Goose opened up for him?
I did not. That one was in Madison. I did not get to go to that one. I went to their next one in Chicago at the United Center.
All right. I am a Mountain Joy fan myself.
Awesome.
I'm a big Goose fan, though. I think they are the best band on the planet. So shout out Mountain Joy. I will also wish I was at that show. I did listen to it on Nugs, but yeah, that's a dope hat that you got there, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you appreciate this kind of music. Is there any shot you can mute your real quick? I don't know. I can hear like our feedback on it at all. I don't know if that's you're hearing that at all.
I think that might be on your guys' end because you're kind of cutting in and out actually a little bit.
All right. Maybe can you give Ryan a call and we'll do it that way? Maybe because we got a little bit of feedback here. Ryan, we'll get you on that one.
Okay, cool. Right? Sounds good.
All right, so we're going to take a quick second there just because we had a little bit of feedback. I want to make sure we get a clean interview on this side because Ryan is fantastic. Again, if you have tuned into the show at this time before 10:20, Warlocks Locks is a fantastic segment where Jack and I go through, usually pick cards out of the Magic Cheesehead. That way we've kind of switched it up over the past couple of weeks, went back to our prize picks, Mount Picks More type of setup that we've had before. But as we move into the Super Bowl here, we kind of wanted to get some expert picks on the Super Bowl. Ryan Horvat is the guy that we wanted to bring in to be that expert. Ryan, since the past couple of weeks have transpired, I've gone back and forth between whether or not the Seahawks or the New England Patriots are the team that I'm going to be A, rooting for in this game, and then B, just overall who I think is going to win this game. For a couple of weeks, it was the Seattle Seahawks. Over the past couple of days, I've changed over to the New England Patriots. Are you having that same kind of like back and forth conflict with this game? And if so, where are you at now and why have you kind of had that back and forth conflict?
Yeah, great question, Charlie, to be honest, man, because I have been going back and forth. In the last couple of years, I've known who I liked going into the game. Like last year was really easy for me because I bet Philadelphia to win the Super Bowl in June. I really like that Eagles team because of their defense, because of the Saquon Barkley pickup. They have all the talent on the offensive side of the ball, mainly their defense, though, and their offensive line. So last year, all week, I knew I was going to bet the Eagles. And I already had money on Philadelphia because I played a ton of futures. The year before that, unfortunately, I was on San Francisco. I faded Mahomes. I thought they had the better team. They lose in overtime on that walk-off. But this year, I've been going back and forth. I bet 15 prop bets. I do think I have a pretty good idea of how this game is going to go down. But as far as the winner, I think Seattle wins the game, but I don't know that they win the game by margin. I don't know that they win the game by 5 points, by 6 whole points, by a full touchdown. So, if I had to bet the game today, I would probably take the points with New England, only because of the way that their defense is playing right now. I mean, Mike Vrabel was an excellent hire, obviously. They fix up the offensive line, but that's been an issue the last couple of weeks. Their offensive line's actually struggled, and Drake May has taken a ton of sacks. So that scares me a little bit. I also really like Drake May. I've been a fan of his ever since North Carolina. He wants to push the ball down the field. He has a rocket for an arm. The only problem is Seattle's defense doesn't give up any explosive plays. They're top 10 against the run. They're top 10 against the pass. The only reason I guess I'm not running out to lay the points with Seattle is I don't know that I trust Sam Darnold. He struggled a little bit in the red zone. He struggles against the blitz. And that's what the Patriots are going to do in this game. They're going to send the heat at Darnold and try to force him into some uncomfortable situations. So I've been going back and forth. If I had to bet the game right now, I would take the points with the Patriots. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, especially in the first half. I think it's going to be a field goal game. But as far as a winner, I think Seattle wins the game, man. I just think that they're the better team. I really like Mike McDonald. Two really good coaches, but I like McDonald a lot. And I think like Sam Darnold, that would be a great story, man. Him going out, avenging, the last couple of years and getting that Super Bowl. I think it'd be really fun to see.
Ryan, great to have you on the show. Missed the days on the Wendy's Big Show with you, but love the take of head-to-head Seattle, and I like the taking the money, the points with the Patriots. I believe you post previously this week that you're taking Patriots to punt first possession. I kind of like that one too. Are you still on that?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite prop bets. I got a couple prop bets I really like in this game. So if you go to FanDuel, you could go to team specials, and that's one of the prop bets that I like. I like the Patriots to punt before they score any points, before they kick a field goal, before they score a touchdown, just because you have Drake May, second-year quarterback, going against a really good defense. I think there's going to be some nerves, and I do think that New England's going to get off to a slow start. Like they have really here in the playoffs. The other thing with the Patriots that nobody's talked about, they played the easiest schedule of quarterbacks, I think, in like the last decade plus. I mean, last week they get Jarrett Stidham, or 2 weeks ago, rather than Bo Nix. They get CJ Stroud, dome quarterback, outdoors in cold weather. So they've had a lot of luck, man. But I do think that they're going to get off to a slow start. I like the first half under in this game. I don't think we're going to get 21 points in the first half. I think most of the scoring is going to come in the second half. So that's another prop bet that I made. It's like minus 135, but I bet more points to be scored in the second half than in the first half, because I do think it's going to be a slow start for New England.
And how do you feel about running backs if we're looking at Ramondre Stevenson, Travion Henderson, or Walker? Who do you think gets a rushing touchdown?
That's a really good question, man, because I had people texting me this week, like, should we just take Kenneth Walker to win Super Bowl MVP, trying to make the case for somebody other than Sam Darnold, who's the favorite. The problem with that is a running back hasn't won Super Bowl MVP since 1997. It was Terrell Davis, which, unfortunate for us as Packer fans. But I did play a couple props. So with Ramondre Stevenson, I took the under 15.5 rush attempts. I still like it at 14.5. It's come down one. He had 25 carries last week, but last week was a snow game. It was a weather game. I think they're going to use Travion Henderson a little bit more with a full week to prep. Now, he's only had 6 touches the last 6 quarters of football, and the reason being they don't trust him in pass protection. He's only a rookie, but they're going to need somebody going against that top 10 run defense that can hit a home run, and I think they're going to use Henderson a little bit. So I played Ramondre Stevenson unders. I actually played Henderson overs, and then on Seattle's side, I played Kenneth Walker under 75.5 rushing yards, and I also bet him under 14.5 on the longest rush. I just talked about the Patriots' run defense. All season long, they've been top 10. But they've been even better since Milton Williams came back. So he played weeks 1 through 11. He got hurt week 11. He missed weeks 11 through 18. Since he's come back, they've had the best run defense. So I don't think Kenneth Walker is going to go off for 80 yards or a 15-yard home run in this game, but I do think they're going to use him in the pass game a little bit more. So I played the over on his receiving yards, over 20.5. And I also took their backup, Polani. I took him over 1.5 grabs. I think Seattle's going to have to come out, Jack. I think they're going to have to throw the ball, man, on early downs, because you do not want Sam Darnold in those known passing situations, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, especially with that New England blitz. So I think what Seattle's going to do is they're going to come out and they're going to throw the ball on early downs, hopefully to the tight ends and the running back. So I got Walker over on the receiving yards, under on the rush yards. And then with the Patriots, I like Travion Henderson in this game quite a bit.
For sure. Talking with Ryan Horvat. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Horvat here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. So I'm with you on that. I've kind of been thinking that Seattle, in order to kind of get this notion of Sam Darnold not being able to perform in these higher pressure games, they need to get him going early in order to kind of get past that, especially against a strong New England defense, especially in those early down situations. Because of that, I've had this kind of feeling that Cooper Kupp is going to be a bigger part of the Seattle offense, especially as we get into the Super Bowl run, a guy who's been there, a guy who's done that, a guy that has this type of experience. But I've also heard Rashid Shaheed's name brought up a lot. If you had to put money on who that number 2 wide receiver is going to be behind JSN, and whether or not that guy is going to have an impact in this game larger than maybe the tight ends or the running backs out of the backfield, who would you pick?
Great question, man. So as far as the tight ends, I took AJ Barner to have a rush yard because they use him in those Wildcat packages, and it's plus 116. All we need is one rush yard. I also took, hopefully. I also took the under on his longest reception, 12.5. As far as the receivers, though, man, I'm with you on Cooper Kupp. I like Cooper Kupp a lot in this game. I played the over on his receiving yards, 35.5. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think he's the best receiver in the league. Like, no disrespect to Jamar Chase. No
Hands
disrespect to
I was fighting for
Justin
MVP
Jefferson.
votes with JSN earlier in the show.
Yeah.
I mean, he's such a good route runner, man. If you look at, like, the nerd stats, the separation that he creates, and that's why I think New England in this game, New England plays just as much man defense as any other team in the league. But I think in this game, they're going to throw a curveball at Darnold, and I think they're going to play a ton of zone. Because if you look at the splits, JSN is still a dog against zone coverage, but it's not as good. And as good as Christian Gonzalez is, as good as Marcus Jones is,
They're not staying with him.
Right. I don't know that you want them on an island with him, man. So I think they're going to play zone. I think he's going to get some bracket coverage, some double team looks, and I think Cooper Kupp is going to eat on the other side. I think he finishes with at least 40 receiving yards. Shaheed's always interesting. I usually play him on the first touchdowns because he's a kick returner. He's taken one to the house before. But I like Kupp a little bit more in this game, man. I wouldn't be shocked if he was the leading receiver just because everybody loves JSN. He's getting so much attention. Wouldn't shock me if the old crafty vet Cooper Kupp made some plays in this game.
If we went over to the New England sideline with their wide receiver group, is there anybody in that group that you're really looking at being kind of that number one target for a Drake May in this game? I know Hunter Henry's been that guy for a lot of this season, that safety net for him. But in the wide receiver room, you got veterans, but you also have a lot of young players that are probably looking to make a name for themselves. If the Patriots are going to win this football game, they're going to need contributions from guys who haven't had that big of a contribution throughout the season, who we were expecting in that group to be the standout name.
Yeah, Hunter Henry is interesting, man, because you can attack Seattle a little bit in the middle of the field. I think his receptions are like 4.5. I think he catches at least 5 balls. So I do like Henry. As far as the receivers, I took an under on Stephon Diggs, under 14.5 longest reception. I'm sorry, under 17.5 longest reception. He's just not really the vertical guy anymore. Now, if he catches one underneath and he gets a bunch of yak, he's going to kill me on that bet. But the vertical guys are Mac Hollins and Kayshon Boutte. So if I was looking at, longest reception or receiving yards, I might actually look at Kayshon Boutte because he's going to be the vertical guy for Drake May. I just worry, is Drake May going to have enough time in the pocket to push the ball down the field against not only the Seattle pass rush, but their defense as well? So for me, it's Boutte, it's Mac Hollins, and it's Hunter Henry, and I'm going to fade Stephon Diggs. It won't surprise me if he has like 7 grabs, man. I just don't think it's going to be for $150. I think they're going to keep him kind of wrapped up in this game. So we'll see. That's what makes New England so interesting. It's kind of like Green Bay every week. We never know who's going to step up. Is it going to be Dobbs? Is it going to be Watson? Kind of the same situation for them. Also makes what Drake May has done this regular season so impressive, man, because they don't have a Jamar Chase or a T. Higgins or a Justin Jefferson. It's the Diggs is good, but he's 31 years old and he's coming off a torn ACL. So for me, I kind of like Kayshon Boutte in this matchup, but I will be fading Stephon Diggs on the longest reception.
Ryan, I'll ask my last question. What is your favorite prop bet that has nothing to do with football on this game?
So, really good question. Usually I'll do the Gatorade, which I haven't. The last couple of years, I've bet the blue Gatorade and have not won. We'll bet the coin toss. My son wants to go with heads this year, although yesterday, joking around, I flipped the coin.
Okay.
Tails never fails.
Yeah.
I know. We did go heads last year, though. We went against everybody and we won it. And then I will probably look at the halftime stuff. I haven't been able to yet just because I don't have any offshore accounts, but I usually like betting like the halftime show, like will Bad Bunny bring out Cardi B? Will he bring out, somebody else?
Love that.
What song will lead off? How many songs will he perform over 10.5?
I love the leadoff sign. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited for Bad Bunny, and I like it because it's going to piss a lot of people off. So I'm really excited to watch the performance. Now, Charlie, not going to lie, I wish we had some Mount Joy or maybe a little Goose.
Sick. That'd be so sick. That'd be so
but I'll take some Bad Bunny. Yeah, usually I have a lot of like crazy props, right? Like the over or the under on the national anthem. This year, I'm having a hard time finding a lot of them, man. It's changed a lot because betting is now legal. Everybody's doing it. So, like, they're not offering the same kind of stuff. Every once in a while, I'll do a cross-sport parlay. Like, if I like Seattle to win the game, maybe I'll take Seattle to win the Super Bowl, Brewers to win the World Series, something stupid like that.
Okay.
But, that's about it for me.
So, Ryan, I got one more for you, too. I want to kind of get away from the Super Bowl and kind of go over to the world of the NBA. I don't know if you've been following all this Giannis drama that's been happening the past couple of weeks, but he is staying in Milwaukee. But one of the other kind of bigger stories I think has gone under the radar yesterday was when he announced that he is now a partner of Kalshi and that he is going to be like part owner of the prediction markets, which are this whole new world in or kind of adjacent to sports betting and what's going on here. Do you see any kind of like moral conflict with him doing that? And then also attribute any of this past drama that we've seen over the couple of months to a partnership like this? And can you see more drama being blown up like that because of things like this that are going unregulated?
Not with Giannis so much, but it did surprise me a little bit, man. And this was always going to be the issue when we legalized sports betting, right? We're seeing college athletes fixing games, throwing games,
Right.
shaving points, which was always to be expected because they're not making 50 million, 100
Especially the guys
million.
at,
But
like the mid-major colleges, yeah.
right, exactly. But then we saw in the NBA, man, right? Like that guys were involved and got in a lot of trouble. And guys like Terry Rozier, who signed a Supermax a couple of years ago, was making a ton of money. So I don't think there's any moral conflict with Giannis. It did surprise me. I don't really love it, but I think that that's just going to be the future, man. I mean, right? Like all these guys are going to make so much money off these endorsements. It's not like Giannis is probably going to use the product, but he's going to put his face on it because they're going to give him millions of dollars. I thought the Giannis situation was, I mean, I hate to say it. I was telling our guy, Bart Winkler, who used to be a host on the show, I was like, I would trade Giannis only because I think at this stage of his career, and I love Giannis, I still think he's a top 10, top 15 player in the NBA, but I don't think he's good enough to lead the Bucks to another championship without any help. And they've tried so many times to revamp this roster, man, right? Like the championship team is gone. Drew Holiday's gone. Chris Middleton's gone. And they keep trying to like throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I'm not the biggest Doc Rivers fan, right? I wasn't the biggest Kyle Kuzma fan. I hear people like, well, we could go out and we can make a move for Ja Morant. I love Ja Morant when he's actually healthy and he's on the floor. I would have traded Giannis. I'm a Bulls fan, guys, and I've been in hell the last decade.
I'm right there with you, Ryan.
The last 20 plus years. And all I want them to do, and they're finally going to do it, blow it up, man. I don't want to play for the 10 seed. I do not want to be in the play-in and lose to the Miami Heat. So in the NBA, that's how you unfortunately have to start over. It sucks because it's not like the NFL where you could have the worst record and then get the number one overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like look at the Wizards, for example. Every year they finish with like 25 wins and they never get a top 5 pick. But I think that that's how you got to do it, man. You got to blow it up. You got to get a bunch of young talent. We'll see. I would love to see, Giannis win another championship in Milwaukee, but I probably would have moved them. There's some weird stuff going on there.
For sure. Ryan Horvat, thank you so much for joining us today here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend. You were awesome, my man.
Thanks, boys. Love Mount Joy. Love Kenneth Walker, over 20.5 receiving yards.
Yes, sir. You heard it from the man himself. Talk to you later, all right?
Thanks, guys.
There he is, Ryan Horvat. Thank you so much to him for joining the show. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Horvat. He joined us on the Gruber Law Talk and Text line. One call. That is all. When we come back, a very abbreviated Wisconsin Sports Weekend, a pub crawl for Jack and I. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke. We are live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. When we come back, it'll be time to crawl. I think the bumpers choose to play like songs I like better when we got to like switch the music to like a pretty great song too. Pretty great music right there. When the Irish jig kicks in, you know it's time here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, where Jack and myself, Jack Pembroke, Charlie Houston over here, dive into what we missed on the show, what you may have missed in this week in sports here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor right there on historic Brady Street. If you are brand new to the Wisconsin Sports Weekend pub crawl, it is pretty easy, pretty simple. Jack and I just go back and forth, share, again, the stories that we've seen throughout the week. Sometimes Jack likes to become Dr. Pepper, share a little science, a little history with us. Not always, but oh, I like the monocle. Ooh, fancy. But I will start us off here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend. We are a little short on time on the pub crawl, so I'm not going to play the audio. But Tom Brady, former quarterback for the New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I guess, if you want to bring that up, said in a podcast the other day called Let's Go, he said that he does not have a horse in this race for the Super Bowl, despite being the greatest New England Patriot of all time, one of the greatest players of all time. Pretty insane that he is going out here and saying, you know what, I'm not rooting for anybody. Jack, like, do you think that's a little disingenuous on the behalf of Tom Brady?
He owns the Raiders, and if it was like Aaron Rodgers and the Packers were in the Super Bowl and you heard Aaron say, I don't have a dog in the fight, I'd be a little ticked.
Be quiet. Yeah, what do you got up over there on the pub crawl?
Okay,
first?
Quick. 12 Badgers on the Olympic ice hockey teams in the women's ice hockey, and 6 of them are on Team USA. So, as always, dominant in ice hockey with women's sports.
Makes
UW.
sense. That's really cool. Congrats to them. I know that UW is expected to have like the first overall pick in this year's Women's Hockey League draft, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, they're pretty dominant over there in that sport. Next up here, the college football playoff won't have a New Year's Eve game this year because they don't want to compete with the NFL on said day for that time slot. I think that's a little cowardice. I think they should go out there and compete with NFL and take that day because that's your day. That's the college football playoffs. That's what I think about. I think it's a little unfair for the NFL to kind of take over there. Jack, what do you got up last year real quick?
Shout out to my baby brother, Patrick Pembroke's birthday is tomorrow. Thanks for always being the best guy to bang on the boards in one-on-one basketball and probably one of my best teammates on Little League.
Happy birthday, Pat. Love to hear that. And that will do it for the Wisconsin Sports Weekend pub crawl. We'll also do it for Wisconsin Sports Weekend today. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. We will be here same time, same place next week, but Tommy Wirtz will be in my place because I have date night and I want to spend the next morning with my girlfriend because it's Valentine's Day.
Tell Beth, have a great Valentine's Day.
Will do. And those guys are cold and lonely and sad, so I get to have fun.
Wah, wah, wah.
This has been Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke. Have a great rest of your weekend, folks.